And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Winds out along the outer coastline here of the Panhandle out of the east at 15 to 20 knots for Sunday. Light south wind at 10 knots for Lynn Canal, north at 15 for Stevens Passage, and southeast 15 for Clarence Strait. And for Monday here for the central and south coast, northwest winds mostly at 20 knots, and for the north coast, anywhere from west to northwest to north at 10 to 15. North to northwest winds 15 for the central southern inner channels, north at 20 now for Lynn Canal. And for Prince William Sound, light northeast breeze at 10 tomorrow, Cook Inlet, north to northeast 15 to 20 knots, north at 20 knots for Kamishak Bay and the Barren Islands, and east northeasterlies at 20 for the North Gulf Coast. Then for Monday, lighter winds, light variable winds here in the inlet at 10 knots, but good gales for Kamishak Bay, east or west at 40 knots, northwest at 35 knots for the Barren Islands, and the North Gulf Coast looking at northwest winds at 20 knots. Same forecast for Prince William Sound, northwest at 20. And Kodiak Island, north 25 knots, the Alaska Peninsula, west to north winds at 25 to 30 knots, and north at 25 for Bristol Bay. And for Monday, for the peninsula here, looking at west northwesterlies 25 to 30, a good stiff west wind at 30 knots for Bristol Bay and Kodiak Island, west winds 25 to 30 knots. Eastern Aleutians, north to northwest winds 25 to 30 knots, north to northwest at 25 or less here for the central Aleutians. Kiskadeshimia, south winds at 30 knots. And then for the day on Monday, gale warnings coming into the far western Aleutians there, south winds increasing to 40 knots. Pretty light here for Adak and Atka, northeast at 15, and north to northwesterlies at 25 to 30 for the Fox Islands. And for the southwest coast, we've got northwest winds at 20 knots in the forecast for Sunday, northwest 25 for the Pribilofs, west at 30 for St. Matthew Island, southwest 15 to Norton Sound, and west at 20 for St. Lawrence Island. And for Monday, west at 20 now for Norton Sound, 15 knot westerly, St. Lawrence Island, Yukon Delta coast there, south of Nunivak Island, west winds at 25. Gale warnings for St. Matthew Island, southwest 35 knots, west at 20 for the Pribilofs. On up to the Chukchi Sea, we've got southwest to southeast winds at 20 to 25 knots. Western Arctic coast here, south winds 30 to 35 knots. Coming down to 20 knots there in the central coast, and the east side, southeasterlies 15 to 20. Then on Monday, we've got gale warnings for the central and western Arctic coast. West winds at 35 knots. Pretty brisk westerlies here for the eastern Boulevard Sea coast as well, at up to 30 knots there. And for the Chukchi Sea, westerlies 15 to 20 knots.